All right, here we are. Finally Friday. You know what that means. It's time for Decibel Geek Friday Night Live. I'm Aaron Camaro. That's Chris Sinzak. You're getting 2 out of the 3 tonight because Rock and Ron, he's not going to be able to join us this evening, but I know he's back there. He's watching it. He's hanging out with us tonight, so we're going to have some fun. Chris, are you ready to kick off KISSmas in July?
Well, I'll tell you this way.
You have entered the Psycho Circus. Welcome to the show.
I could not do that.
We got to dress him up like that again and have him be like, welcome to Friday Night Live. Kevin Williams is here. What's up, dude? There's Kristen. She's here on a Friday night.
Craig Broderick. We'll start with Paul's bare feet.
Damn it, Craig. You ruined my joke. I was setting something up. I was just about to set it up, and he spoiled it for me. I was going to tell you, Chris, I'm pretty comfortable in my own skin. I'm easygoing, laid back, and I'm especially comfortable hanging out with you, And you know how you can always tell that I'm comfortable in my own skin, feeling good about myself?
Oh,
I'm barefoot. That's the way to let people know that you're comfortable in your own skin.
I think I can smell that from here.
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, Missy's on bare feet. Yeah, Kristen. No, Ron. Let's give the update on Ron real quick. Ron is doing better. He's fighting through a lot of stuff right now, but he is watching. He can't sit in a chair in front of the computer right now for 2 hours. Right. It's just too much on him. So, but you guys give Ron your well wishes in the comments because he is watching, and I'll bring him up on screen.
Awesome. Good deal. I like that.
It's bushy.
It's bushy.
The Moogers are here.
All right.
Feet are
all our good friends. Yeah, I mean, they're just like fingers that you walk on, just feet.
Yeah, Ron is a badass.
Yeah, he is. You see that picture of Ron with the stitches down his back? He's starting to heal up.
Wow.
So metal looking. He could be that could be a Pantera album cover or something.
Yeah, probably could. Let's talk about the metaphor video, such worthy footage of a car approaching a cliff. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute.
That shit's annoying.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So let's just get into it because our guest is going to be on in about 10 minutes. So let's talk about the A&E biography real quick. This is all going to be Kiss talk tonight. So if you don't like Kiss, you may want to catch us next week.
Yeah, see you next month.
But what'd you think overall? Did you like it?
Overall, I liked it. I did like it. Like Kevin said, I hate it when they do that. Like wrestling videos on YouTube will do that, and they were like, and then they thought about what they were going to do next, and it just got a graphic of a guy doing this. It's like, man, Kiss, you could have filled all that time with other stuff. If you took all that dumb shit out of there, you'd have probably had another 15 minutes worth of Kiss you could have put into that thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so annoying. Just time filler is all it is.
Yeah. I think, this was not made for diehards like you and me.
Well, no, of course not.
So
no.
This is honestly, it's an advertisement for the rest of the tour. That's the way I view it.
Kinda, yeah, more or less.
And I will say this, like it's kind of the tale of two nights for me because the first night just covers 73 to 79, so it's only a 6-year span they're covering on that.
Yeah.
But I thought they were very fair in the drama part of the first half. So
yeah,
because yes, they bring up Ace and Peter's struggles, but at the same time, Gene especially brings up and Paul even says, fame is a powerful drug. And I love Paul's line where he says, fame doesn't change you. It just makes you the asshole you always were or something.
Right. Yeah. Magnifies it.
Yeah. So they were willing to put the mirror up to themselves, I thought.
Yeah. That was pretty cool too. Because if, normally it's, those guys were on drugs. They were a bunch of losers and they're lazy and stupid, but we're awesome, but this was a little different, Gene actually, when he would say, Ace and Peter had their struggles with drugs and alcohol, but I had my own stuff going on too that wasn't so great, that's refreshing to see that, everybody's being accountable.
And I thought that so I mean the first half, the first half was a lot of rehash of stuff we already knew. I liked that they focused on the Wicked Lester era. I thought that was interesting to hear more about that.
Yeah, I was really kind of surprised to see Steve Cornell's name up on that thing.
I thought they would have dodged over him.
Yeah, me too. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Can't believe they even mention him.
But I will say that, like, and we'll get into part 2 in a minute, but like the big thing for me as a diehard who's, it's like the thing that cracked me up are people acting like they're like, well, there was nothing I didn't already know. And it's like, well, if you're a big diehard Kiss fan, you listen to shows like ours and podcasts and stuff, all this stuff. It's not like they're going to suddenly come up with some secret history that no one knew about.
Right, yeah.
The genie's out of the bottle as far as
Tell me about it. I'm the guy that's got to come up with Kiss trivia questions for Chris Czynszak.
Exactly.
It's hard, man.
But for me...
Can't stump a Kiss fan.
Well, and we'll get into this with RIK FOX in a few minutes when he joins us. The big draw for me was the unreleased photos and videos that we had never seen before. And
yeah. There was some cool stuff.
I wish it had not kind of just glossed over real fast what they were, because it was a lot of just real quick snippets of things that you would want to see more of.
Yes.
But I caught some cool stuff on there, and like the back cover of Live where the kids have the sign. They have video of those kids holding the sign. That was I was like, that's pretty amazing. And then the Peter Criss, sitting down in the studio to start singing his part on Beth, wearing street clothes, no makeup. I thought that was cool. There was footage of, and we'll get to this with Rick, them playing in '74 in Asbury Park at the place called the Sunshine Inn. And the reason I know this shows how nerdy I am. There was a period of time where Gene had the skull and crossbones on the front of his costume. And there was a show or two where he had actually had to take the white skull and crossbone patch off of his costume for whatever reason, but you can still see the outline of it, but it's just black on the front of his costume. And there's footage of him with his costume like that. And I know that one of those shows was Sunshine Inn in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and Rick was at that show. We'll talk to him in a bit about it. But
nice.
I verified it with our friend Andrew Scambatti, because Andrew's a bigger nerd than we are. And Andrew's like, yeah, that's Sunshine Inn, Asbury Park. And of course, and then I'm like, of course, how much of that footage is there? And of course, he doesn't answer me.
Right. But, yeah. That's the thing. The little snippets and everything and little pieces that you go, oh man, I would love to see that whole tape. Like where they're in rehearsal and they're learning how to, be Kiss. And you got Sean Delaney running around in there and, like directing them and things. And Bill Coyne's in there. It's like, man, I want to see this entire rehearsal tape.
Right. Then they had footage of, Lydia Chris's footage of them on the plane with no makeup. I thought that was really cool to see, them talking, with no street clothes. And that was something that had been kind of rumored for years that they had. But to me, that was the interesting stuff. As far as I like seeing Paul and Gene in present day going into Electric Lady and talking to each other. That was pretty cool, I thought. Yeah,
when they're going, hey, you remember this, and hey, you remember that. I like that stuff.
That was cool. Some of their interviews were good. Obviously, I wish Ace and Peter were part of it, but I thought they did okay with what they had.
Yeah, the clips they used, it fit everything, and it would be like the obvious question that you would ask Peter Criss. They went and found the answer to that and put it in the right spot. I'll give them that. That was pretty cool too, because it's what you always expect, like, oh shit, they're gonna take and make it the worst Ace and Peter, perspective it can be, but not so much the case this time. I thought it was really cool that they talked about Tom Snyder's show when they were all on it, because I never really heard them really talking about it before. Where like Gene's like, yeah, or you could tell, or Peter's laughing because he's laughing at us. He ain't laughing at Ace. He's laughing at us being miserable.
I was like, get over yourself on that one. I mean, if Ace and Peter towed the line on that interview, would we even hear about it ever? No. It would have been a boring ass interview.
Yes. And now it's legendary, and it makes me laugh no matter how many times I ever see it.
And I get to those guys, they had to deal with Ace's drinking and all that, and it's different for them. But at the same time, nobody would have given a damn about that interview if Ace hadn't have done what he did. And it's like, And and Paul's hurt that Peter's like, well, he's reveling in Ace taking over the interview away from us. Well, of course he is. You guys are control freaks.
Yeah. Well, because those guys walked into that interview with an agenda. These are the things we got to hit, and we got to tell them about the tour. We got to tell them about this. We got to tell them about that. And then Ace comes in and he does totally hijack that interview. No doubt about it, and takes them completely off their game. And you could just, I don't know, man. It was cool to see him talking about it, though.
Yeah. And then part 2 is like, it was weird though, because part 1 covers 6 years, part 2 covers 42.
Yeah.
But I will say they did more justice to the 80s than I thought. Although,
yeah.
Here's my biggest gripe about this documentary in general is the lack of attention to the band's music. Like, the music is a complete afterthought. It's all about the makeup, the show, and the drama. That's all. It's about.
True.
So it's like,
and even the music
was a band.
Even the music they use as a bed in a lot of the parts weren't even Kiss songs. I mean, they were played to sound like Kiss, and the stuff sounded pretty good. I was like, oh man, I like an album of that. But
like
I mean, why not just play Kiss music?
Yeah, some of it sounded like classic '78.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
But no, it's like the music's a fucking afterthought on a lot of this stuff, and it's like that irritated me. It's kind of like. And I get that it's not for the diehards, but it's like you're still a musical band, so you think you would play even demo versions of stuff or something, But no, it seemed very heavy on the drama side,
Yeah.
But
that's what sells, That's what gets people interested. That's how Motley Crue blew up when that Dirt movie came out. It wasn't about the band; it was about all the crazy shit that went along with it.
Right. So yeah, Extreme Close Up was a good one. That might still be my favorite, but it's, and then a lot of people, I heard that people behind the scenes like Pixie Esmond and some of the original Road crew, Carrie Stevens, were all interviewed for it, and none of their stuff was used. So, you have to wonder what those people said.
They'll probably come up with a director's cut that you can buy later.
I hope they do.
You get the teaser for free on TV, and now you got to pay $100 to get everything.
Well, if they had it where it was like a 6-hour doc where they really included all the warts and all, I'd pay $100 for that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I think, but I mean, at the same time, it's like compared to watching Real Housewives or some shit like that, it was pretty good. I mean, it's still Kiss on your TV for 2 nights in a row. It's pretty.
That's
great.
right. In 2021, no less. The impact of that band from all the way back to the early 70s, all the way to today. Pretty amazing.
And I saw a glimpse of our buddy Gary Corbett on in the.
I was gonna say, and we saw Pixie on there too.
Yeah, but
it's very cool. They didn't even talk that bad about Vinnie Vincent.
Not really. They glossed over him.
They really glossed over him.
They didn't trash him.
Yeah.
They brought up the whole thing about the, him going too long on his solo, but I don't know if that's even accurate because the show they're referring to, I've listened to the board tape of that, and it's the typical length of his normal solo. I almost think they embellished a tad on that too, but I don't know. We'll see. But
it's easier to say that than what really went down.
Yeah, well, with Kiss, I've learned that you have to have low expectations. If you're expecting the world, you're probably not going to get it. You just have to temper a little bit of what you expect. But I liked it overall. It was fun. It was a fun 2 nights to watch, and it was cool to interact with people as we were watching it and reacting to it. So. It was cool to see A&E, and A&E does a great job with their biographies. So
they do. They did a good job with the wrestling ones and Kiss.
So I thought it was well done. I wanted to hear more Kiss music. That's my biggest gripe. But otherwise, narrative and storyline, I thought for it being, although Julian Gill, I watched his podcast today, and he had the greatest line where he said the alternate title for this could have been "I Was Made for Loving Me." The
Kiss story.
I have to give him credit because it's a lot of we're the best and we're the greatest and we persevered, So, but I liked it overall though. I'm ready for the Ace and Peter and the Kiss Road Crew doc to come out to counter it. That would be great.
That would be great. Yeah. Oh man, I'd love that.
All right,
somebody ought to do it.
So it looks like our guest is backstage now. We're ready to bring him on, and we're gonna really nerd out on some cool KISS stuff because this guy was there from day one, pretty much literally before KISS even. Everybody, welcome RIK FOX to the show. Hey, Rick.
Hey, Rick.
How you doing, guys?
Good. How are you?
Good, man.
All right. Hey, how's Ron doing? Is he better out of the hospital or what?
Yeah, he's at home. He's been going through treatments again, but he can't sit in the office chair for 2 hours tonight to get through this. So he's watching right now though.
Just praying for him.
Yeah, me too.
Right
man.
on. Me too.
Thank you. But yeah, so you're based out of Missouri now, right?
Shh.
Oh, okay. Is that a secret?
Yeah, don't tell him he's there.
Yeah, we're now in the heartland.
That's cool.
Right on.
You liking it there?
Yeah, it's kind of really humid right now. I mean, you go outside for a few minutes and you're dripping sweat.
Yeah. Tennessee too, same way.
You go out there with the lawnmower and yeah, that's right. I pushed the lawnmower. And I'm drenched.
Yeah.
So
I hear you. So
but, it's a really small town.
right.
It's like you remember the film Arthur when he was describing the hooker that was with him when he was sent with his Aunt Pearl and Uncle, what is his name, in the restaurant.
All right.
And he's saying that the country she's a princess. The country she's from is so small they just had it carpeted. This town is like that. You could carpet this town. It's only like 3 miles.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot different than LA.
Way different.
Which is not a bad thing.
No.
So, interesting week for you because, we're talking about this A&E KISStory biography. You had some involvement in this because they used some of your photos for this biography.
That's true.
How were you pleased with the final product and how it turned out?
I didn't get a chance to see it.
Oh, really?
No.
Yeah, I mean, we're not hooked up with TV or cable right now. So I mean, we just moved. So I'm still unpacking. So we don't even have a hookup to any kind of networks or anything yet.
Right.
But I'll say this: about a year or so ago, when they first started to announce that they were going to work on this project, I got in touch with their office, with their management. And I know their manager. The manager knows me. We've known each other for a long time. And I said, listen, I think I have something to bring to the table with to Doc's office, Doc McGee. And I didn't speak to him. I spoke to somebody there at the office. It sounded like some kid, actually. And I said who I was and what my involvement was and how far back it went. I said, I'd like to bring something to the table for this. If you get a message to Doc. And he says, hey, okay. I called 2 or 3 times. I never got any return calls, nothing back. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't for Kurt Gooch's getting me involved, I wouldn't have been involved in this thing at all.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he contacted me and said, we'd like to license some of your photos, which we did. And they only wanted the Coventry shots. They didn't want the Fillmore shots for some reason. So, and I can't find my Sunshine Inn photos. They're around somewhere packed away.
Yeah, we were talking about that before. Yeah. Some of the video footage that they showed on this was from Sunshine Inn with Gene with the black front. That photo, that footage blew my mind, because I didn't know there was video of that.
The roof was so low they couldn't put the KISS sign up behind them.
Yeah,
they had to have it. They had it on the side of the stage.
Wow,
but right next to Gene.
But let's go back to the early part. So your first connection with Eve, and I should just say KISS related because you kind of came into connection with them when they were still Wicked Lester, right?
Yeah, but I don't remember them really calling themselves Wicked Lester at that point. They really were kind of like in limbo as far as a name, and I was in high school. That'd be like 70, 71, 72. And the Criscola family, Peter's family, moved around the corner from me in Brooklyn. I was on North Henry Street. They were around the corner on the corner of Norman Avenue and Monitor Street. They lived over a bar. Greenpoint, where I'm from, Greenpoint is just full of bars everywhere. And they have apartments that are built up over the bars. And that's where they live. So they didn't have a backyard. If you go out their kitchen window, it went out onto a roof of a parking structure that was like the next floor below. So you just go out the window, and that was their yard, was the roof.
Huh. Wow.
And you climb up the ladder, to the upper part of another part of the roof, and that's where Peter's father had his pigeons. And a lot of old Italian guys, even the mafia guys, they would raise pigeons and raise them and race them. And he'd let the pigeons out. They fly around a few times, and he'd bring them back, and he'd put them in the coop. And that was pretty much what their house was like, and it was Brooklyn. It was boiling hot in the summer. It was cold in the winter, But I would see the Criscola family, well, the mom, and the girls going up and down the street when they'd go food shopping. And the girls never really mixed with the rest of the neighborhood. They didn't look like they were from the area. They had just moved from Williamsburg, which is a really tough area, over into Greenpoint. But Mrs. Criscola, she always had we walking like this, pushing the food cart down the street, big smile, hi, how you doing? Really nice, polite like that, And then I'd see the girls playing ball down the end of the street with each other, bouncing a ball back and forth. And I eventually gravitated to just kind of watching them play until they like lose the ball or something. It would bounce towards me or whatever, and they go bring it back. One thing led to another. We started talking led to hanging out. And then they said, well, our older brother's a rock star. He's a drummer. And at that point, Peter, I think, had just come out of Chelsea. Okay. Chelsea had just broken up. And Peter was pretty distraught about that because the bass player was like a very good friend of his. And they were part of the rhythm section. Then the guy committed suicide. So Peter was still pretty distraught about that. The album never went anywhere.
Right.
And they said their next brother under Peter, which was Joey, he was like an artist. He'd draw stuff like that. Big Rolling Stones fan. So I was an artist, and Joey and I kind of bonded through our artwork. We would compare notes, and he showed me how he drew stuff, and I'd show him how I drew stuff, things like that. So I started hanging out with them that way. And then at some point, when Peter had put the ad in Rolling Stone and Village Voice, drummer willing to do anything to make it, that's when that connection came with him and Gene and Paul.
Right.
Okay. So they would have, invite us to come and go watch them rehearse. Sometimes he would drive Lydia's car. It was a little silver Chevy Nova. And sometimes we take the train into Manhattan and we take the train back and we just go watch him rehearse. And it was, this little loft, 20 by 30 feet, maybe. And one thing caught my, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Was the loft really like just a really run down place?
It's like an industrial buildings, and they had, in the old days they had like sewing centers or places of manufacture something, some assembly line stuff. When I was in Martian Rock Band, we did the same. We had a loft. It wasn't as big as Kiss's loft, but it was a band building. It was, I think it was 250 West 30th Street, and it was all full of bands. Each floor had lofts, and all these bands would rehearse in them. So Kiss was kind of, I think they were on the second or third floor, because I know we could go up the stairs and there, and they all have these. That's Martian Rock Band. That was the influence that Kiss had on me. It was like a spacey version of Gene and Ace together. But cool. Anyway, and all the lofts had this huge heavy metal steel door. We either roll to the side or whatever. It was like a safe, And it was this little room, and they had egg cartons all over the walls, to absorb the sound. It was cold in the winter and hot in the summer. There's almost no ventilation in there.
Right.
And one of the things that caught my attention was I looked on the side of Gene's SVT cabinet, and it stenciled said Jack Bruce. So he actually had one of Jack Bruce's old SVT cabinets.
Oh wow! That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And then at that time, there's various little things that pop out that I always remember. Is at that time, Steelers Wheel song "Stuck in the Middle with You" was out.
Yeah.
And Gene and Paul would a cappella different parts of the chorus. Gene would go, "Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right." Paul would go, "Here I am," and they both go, "Stuck in the middle with you," and do it like a harmony while they were setting up their gear and stuff like that. And we'd watch them rehearse 3-piece like that. We'd sit on a little couch or some chairs and watch them go through the songs. All of this, of course, without Ace.
Right.
And then we missed the auditions when the actual auditions happened. But one of the next times I went up there was this guy leaning against the wall, looked like Shirley MacLaine, everybody says. and he had a gray pinstripe suit with an orange sneaker and a purple sneaker. And he's leaning against the wall. He's playing his ripping leads, perfect with in the Kiss songs. And that was Ace. Ace had already gotten the gig at that point, and Paul would go over to him and nudge him. Come on, get off the wall and come interact with us, And Ace was like, leave me alone, and he'd lean against the wall and play. It wasn't really that much room for them to do anything, but, So then I was watching them rehearse, like that.
That's wild.
So cool,
just,
man.
Just the fact that you were in the loft with those guys. That's hallowed ground for fans like us.
And I learned early on how much of a smartass Gene was. And I know every science fiction film and every horror film, and I know who acted in it. I know who produced it. I know who directed it. I know this. I know this. I know this. And he would dare you to try and quiz him on it.
Wow. And
I got him one day. This is after they were signed. Outside of Coin Management, and he made some comment. It was a comment. It was about the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, and it was a cross between that and 20 Million Miles to Earth, which had that monster they got back from Venus. And he had it mistaken. He had something backwards, and I said, no, the monster from that came from Venus was called an Ymir, Ymir, and I got him. I nailed him on something. He got mad. He didn't like that. So, I mean, little things like that, But yeah, he was always Mr. Condescending smartass, but he was Mr. Educated,
But I remember, I read up on, I think it was on the internet. There was you were writing for your high school paper, and you had done a write up on them, and I think this was pre-Ace, wasn't it?
I can see it in my mind's eye. I know I have a copy of it buried somewhere in my files.
It was like the first review ever written about the band, though.
I tried to get them to play in my high school, and we were this close. Wow. I had to run it past the school council, and I had no way of accurately describing what Kiss was outside of the fact that they were a rock band from New York. And I had nothing to compare it to. I mean, I could hear hooks like the Doobie Brothers. I could hear hooks like Led Zeppelin. But I couldn't get them to understand a grasp, wrap their heads around what Kiss was. And they kind of went, well, maybe we'll pass on it. Right. And I was on the phone with Gene back and forth about this. I was going to get them paid like $200, $300. They were going to play in a high school auditorium. It would have been one of the first gigs they ever played at. And it fell through. And Gene was very upset. He was not happy about that at all. I said, Gene, don't you think I'm disappointed about it too? I'm trying to explain. I'm going through all kinds of weird harassment from my fellow high school students because I stood out. I wore platform shoes. I had glitter on them. I was the quintessential rock and roll guy in a whole high school that had just gone co-ed from being a boys' school. It was Bishop Loughlin Memorial High School in Brooklyn. And we came that close and it fell through. I was upset. Gene was upset, and he was pretty much let down by it, but I was out of my hands, nothing I could do. So I wrote an article in the school paper, the Jamesonian, about them and trying to describe them. And I think that's the first time I had heard that they had some artwork with Wicked Lester of a kid sitting on a stoop, stairs outside an apartment, kind of looking tough, and he had the dog with it, looked like Petey from Little Rascals. Mm-hmm. And I wrote that into the article, and I tried to, as best as I could, verbalize what this band was like, and I think this high school must have been scared. They freaked out or something must have scared them off. So that fell through. And then let's see. There was the Diplomat show where Bill Aucoin showed up, and I was one of those guys that would sneak out of the house with my platform shoes and a bag, go around the corner to the Criscola's house, get dressed, and then we'd all go together, take the train to Manhattan, to New York, and I was at the show at the Diplomat for Kiss and the Brats and the Planets, and those bands were good. The Brats kicked ass, Planets, these bands, the Street Punk, Luger, these were all really good bands. They captured the essence of the pulse, that rock and roll, New York rock and roll feel,
Yeah.
And Kiss came on, and they were like, "What?" And nobody got it. They just saw the makeup, and they were like, but Kiss was so freaking heavy, music wise. They were blowing everybody away. And I think Gene rented a limo so they could all ride together in a limousine, and so I had planned to do something I thought was special. I was always, even at that age, I was a promotion guy. I was always trying to push something I really liked to show everybody else, hey, this is pretty cool. You got to get into this. And I went out and bought a bag of balloons. And I sat in my basement and I blew up each balloon about that big, and I drew the KISS logo on it. And some of them I even tried to draw their faces. This is before printing on balloons.
Right. Yeah.
And I would do it with like a Sharpie by hand. And then you'd deflate the balloon very carefully and lay it very carefully like an eggshell, because once you've deflated it, you can smear the ink.
Yeah.
There's nothing to adhere to the rubber, like that. So I would do, and I had a whole cigar box full of all of these balloons, or shoe box full of these balloons. And I very carefully, we carried it like nitroglycerin on the train. We got to the gig, and right before KISS came on, about 20 minutes before they came on. So it's me, my friend John Alton from high school, Joanne Criscola, who I was dating, Donna Criscola, who John was dating, our friend Anne-Marie Hughes was the whole, we were like all in the front row. Bill Aucoin sitting right, the picture's backwards, sitting right behind us with one of his business partners. And he was asking us, so who are you kids and what are you doing here? Who'd you come to see? And we just surrounded him. It's KISS. It's all about KISS. You can't leave. You got to stay. He goes, why? What is it about this band? You just have to see them, okay? You have to experience this band. Do not leave. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Stay in your seat and watch this band. He was so taken by this. Look at his business party. Went, okay, let's stay. Like that. And we sat there. He was watching us blow up all these balloons, re-inflating them. And we all had our own little pile of, I'd blow them up, and we'd all blow them up, and everybody had their own little pile of balloons. And the lights would go down, and they'd start playing Deuce, and we all stood up at the same time and launched all of these balloons at them. And they never expected it. We never told them it was going to happen. We just did it. And here's Gene going, like the balloons, and he doesn't know what, and he sees the KISS logos on them. And he does that whole monster stomp thing that he does, like that. And he's stomping on the balloons, and he's popping them with his heels, like that. And the stage is just covered in KISS balloons.
Wow.
So, like that. There was little things like that we would do.
That's awesome. You think, maybe Bill Aucoin might have walked out if it wasn't for RIK FOX, or he saw RIK FOX and the girls and was like, wow, they're really into this band. I gotta check them out, man. I could have been the catalyst of all of this.
I can't take all the credit for that. It was the whole group of us.
Sure, yeah.
It was all of our enthusiasm, our exuberance, our energy. He was impressed by that. He said, "This band must be something. Let's stay and see them."
Right.
So cool.
Well,
after the show, we went backstage, and here's Gene talking to Bill Aucoin, and I go up next, and I'm start imitating, talking like Gene to Bill Aucoin, and Gene's standing there going, but I always did that. I always made fun of Gene. So,
well, he was Mr. Serious. But I mean, you were there at the very beginning. Was it very much a one for all for one thing with them at the time? They really got along with each other back in those early days.
It seemed that way. Peter was the oldest, as I recall. So since he was already had a recorded product out before they did. He kind of had a little bit of that, hey, I did it before you guys kind of an attitude. So you better listen to what I say too. And Peter was like a mafia guy. You don't mess around with. He was a pretty tough guy, even with the heels and all of that. But talking to him, it's like you're talking to one of the Sopranos. We all had the thick Brooklyn accent, and he would verbalize what he think this should do or that should do, or but he pretty much got along. There wasn't any arguing or abrasiveness or anything going on back then. It was pretty much the whole one for all for one kind of teamwork thing. And Peter incidentally gave me my first rock and roll haircuts.
Oh, really?
When I was in high school. I saw if everybody remembers
There
the
You
Rod
Guys Are
Stewart
There.
album, Rod Stewart in the Face. There we go. Rod Stewart. Everybody, that picture went around the world and it said Peter Criss and Rick Derringer.
Wow.
I didn't know you wrote Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, Rick.
I'm telling you, Hoochie Coo and more. But Paul McGregor started the whole shag layered haircut thing over in the UK, in England. And if you look at the Rod Stewart in the Faces, Not As Good as a Wink to a Blind Horse album. If you look on the back at the marionettes, the puppets, they all got this hair sticking out. It's all like a rooster. It was a rooster cut. And Rod's, of course, being the most exaggerated. That was if you hairspray it and fluff it up, that's what it looks like. And I wanted a haircut like that in layers. Well, Peter knew how to do this cut. Essentially, it's if you pick your hair up like this and you cut a V, this way and this way, then as the hair falls out, all the layers come like that. That's essentially the secret of how it's done. And McGregor came over to the United States, and he was Jane Fonda, Warren Beatty. He was cutting everybody in Hollywood's hair, all the movie stars with those layers in them. Mm-hmm. So Peter says, "Get me two Bud Tall Boys, Budweiser 16-ounce cans, and a pair of scissors." And I ran out, got the beers, got the scissors, and I sat down and he cut my hair. He gave me layered haircut. And I went back to my house, and my grandma looked at it. She goes, "What is that? What is that? Cut that off. Cut that." She never liked any of that. She didn't understand it. She was
Right.
old school Poland. She didn't. So I went back. I said, my grandmother just got mad. She just said it's too long. He goes, "The hell's wrong with her? Hey, your grandma, get up and get out of here." Oh, we know that line. We know that line. So, and he trimmed it a little bit more. Then it kind of looked like what you saw in that picture. That's pretty much how it looked. And I had my first rock and roll haircut. And Peter was kind of like a big brother to me that I never had, Yeah. And him and Lydia would come and they'd go out on the roof area, like the backyard, the roof area, out their kitchen window. And they'd set up a whole bunch of clotheslines with towels on them that looked like curtains. And they put on this show, the Cunty and Bunty Show.
Oh, jeez.
I don't remember why they called it that. And they would put on these stupid little plays, like the Little Rascals had their barn plays. Right. Peter and Lydia would put on these little stupid, innuendo, sexy kind of filled joke shows. and he was bragging about how he just saw a movie called The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. And he was impressed by it, and he tried to recreate something out of it that was supposed to be funny. I didn't see the movie, so I don't know. But these are little things, these intimate things that you felt really close to them through, like that, And Peter would look out for us, he'd warn us about this or give us advice about that, in his way. And then when they got signed, he came over to his mom's house, and he had a lavender satin shirt and tight jeans and red platform boots with snakeskin platforms in between the wood like that, and total rocked out. I mean, he loved the Rolling Stones and the Beatles so much that he would wear the round glasses like Lennon, but he dressed kind of rock and roll like Keith Richards, like that. And that was the whole, everybody dressed like that. All the bands, we didn't have the term poser in New York back then. Everybody who supported the rock scene dressed up, and were not mocked or made a joke of or looked down upon or condescended. If you dressed rock and roll, they knew you were part of the scene. You supported the scene. We had Jumpin' Jack Flash on 59th Street by the bridge, which sold rock and roll clothes. We had a New York version of a store from England called Granny's Takes a Trip. And everybody got all their rock and roll clothes from there. I got some rock and roll clothes from there myself, like platform boots and rock clothes and whatnot. So to watch these bands on stage, and I'm like a kid in high school, and then 3 years later, I graduate and I'm playing the same stages as these people did. It's like, pinch me, it's like my time when I first got introduced to Max's Kansas City. Right. That was my introduction to the rabbit hole. you know, and that's where the Ramones hung out, and Blondie started. I saw Blondie before she was Blondie. You know, the whole New York City, the underground rock scene, Tough Darts and Robert Gordon. Max's was where Bruce Springsteen got signed, Alice Cooper, Aerosmith, the reggae guy. Tons of people got signed out of Max's, and I got to play and perform on that same stage and all of those legends. So, you know, once I was down the rabbit hole, there was no looking back.
Well,
And Kiss helped pave the way for that with me.
Well, and they mentioned Paul Stanley mentions it in the documentary, and like I've heard this from several people that it's funny because like they did rent out the Diplomat to play downtown in Manhattan, but they were kind of known as like an outsider group. Like they never got invited to CBGB's or Max's or any of those clubs. They played out in Amityville and you know, in Long Island and stuff. So why do you think they didn't get embraced by that kind of the cool club of the inner city groups?
Well, I think, and not unlike myself, when I came to Los Angeles, they represented to some unauthorized opinion, let's say, a territorial threat.
Yeah.
You know, the scenes in New York and LA are very different. In New York, there was heavy competition amongst the bands, but yet everybody still kind of got along. As opposed to LA, everybody knew each other. They didn't always get along, and everybody's backstabbing each other.
Right.
You know, but we're all still playing the same scene. We all shared the same stages, and there's this and that and the other. But Kiss was like this, so outside not outside the box. I say beyond the cube. Okay,
Right.
They were so beyond the cube that you know, and with the makeup, they tried at first, you know, looking like the Dolls. Everybody saw the early
Didn't
picture.
work.
Yeah.
Gene with that sailor suit, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, they were still searching for themselves, for their identity.
Right.
They were trying to find their niche and not look like or sound like anybody else. You know, the Brats sounded and looked like Rod Stewart and the Small Faces, just like them. I mean, you know, Keith West, he didn't have red hair like Rod Stewart. He had black hair, but he had the same rooster haircut. His guitar player, Tony, looked just like Ronnie Wood, had the rooster haircut. You know, all the guys in the band had the shag haircuts, and they dressed English style. They had the, you know, the blazers and the satin pants and the platform shoes. So that was kind of like a look that a lot of bands were sharing. Kiss comes along, and once they decided not to be like the Dolls and go with black outfits and started painting their faces with the white, everybody was like, what are you guys? What are you supposed to be? You know, they didn't know. They just came on like a hammer.
Right.
You know, and people would freak. They were like, they'd walk out. Some people would like walk out after seeing Kiss play and go, "What did I just see?"
Right.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
I suppose there's when you're talking about Kiss like that, especially them early ages, even to nowadays, when you see Kiss, there's one of two reactions: either "Holy shit, wow," or "What?" You know, if it's the first time, it's one of the two. Some get it, some don't.
We got it right off the bat.
Yeah.
No matter what, no matter what they did, they just wowed us. Each little new thing they did that they added into their repertoire wowed us. Nice. You know, Gene used to throw out a bucket of confetti, and people would think it would be a bucket of water. You know, like Gallagher used to do. The comedian Gallagher. You know, you go up to and you throw this bucket. Ozzy, you know, people expect they're going to get splashed with water, and it's a whole bucket of glitter. Right. You know, now people got glitter all over them in the front row, like that. Or Gene would. There was a part in one of the songs where it would just be like, you know, da 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 da. Gene would go out to the audience and grab people by their wrists and make them go, and force them to clap along.
Yeah.
And once Bill O'Coin came in and Sean Delaney, they started advising them what works and what doesn't. I'm sure we've all now seen the rare video of them playing Coventry.
Right.
And which Sean filmed that pretty much the same way a coach will film a football team.
Right.
Watch it and then go back to the locker room and critique it and go, okay, this works, this doesn't, this works, this does. The Coventry picture. Yeah.
There's a photo you took at the Coventry.
Yeah. and it was a small stage too. You can see,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
that. But they worked.
ceiling's low.
Yeah, the ceiling was about maybe a foot over their head,
Wow.
maybe.
That's amazing.
No pyrotechnics. Not early on. Not in a place that small. I think at this point they just started to get the red rotating lights on the tops of the amps, and I think maybe a smoke or fog machine or something like that. But no pyrotechnics yet, like that. They want to melt the ceiling.
Well, tell us, can you describe the Coventry? Because, like, all the Kiss fans, we just know that the name of the club, but, like, what was that place like?
I have bits and pieces. I really wish I could remember more of this. I know when you walked in, there was kind of a bar on the right-hand side. There was all the bar stools. I sat one night next to the guys in the Dolls, and Jerry Nolan and I were talking. That's a bar area. Then you go in, and there's the room. And there's a stage to the right. There's a stage to the left. I'm not sure if there was a stage might have been a stage in the back too. But one band, instead of all the bands on one stage rotating, they'd have a band on one stage and they'd play. And when they were done, 15, 20 minutes, bam, you just look right over at the other stage. And there's the other band playing like that. So they would kind of rotate it like that. And I have some pictures I also took of the Brats on the stage that's opposite the one that you see Kiss on in the Coventry pictures. Mm-hmm. Right across from that is the other stage, and right, okay, that's the one stage on the left as you walk in. Now, if you were Ace looking out, you'd be looking right across the room at the other stage, on the other side of the room, and it had a ceiling that was pretty much the same. And then the dressing room would go downstairs and into the basement. And then because I worked there later on with a band that Sean was managing. Sean Delaney was managing called Spike.
I've heard of Spike. Yeah, I heard they were really cool too.
I have pictures of them, and I worked with them in the daytime. I worked with the drummer Andy. He had a demolition business, and we'd work on 5-story walk-up flats, demolitioning apartments so they could be rebuilt for the contractors like that. And I was carrying cardboard boxes of plaster and heavy stuff down 5-6 flights of stairs and then go back up again and did this all day long. But at night, they would rehearse. He was up in the Bronx, the drummer. He had an old carriage house. And in the area where they used to store the carriages was the rehearsal area. And he slept in the loft upstairs. And Spike was a 3-piece band instead of like Kiss with 4-piece. It was kind of like Kiss, but different. They wore the black stretch leotards, and instead of black studded leather, they wore yellow studded leather. And they had an African-American bass player, Tyrone, gay as a $3 bill, but you never knew it because he wasn't flamboyant, like that. Right. Seems like just straight like everybody else. And it was a really cool guy. What a musician this guy was. He could play Emerson, Lake and Palmer songs with his left hand on his Gibson EB3 bass and play the keyboards with his right hand at the same time.
Wow.
That guy was so talented. And harmonies, forget about it. And he had on his afro, they used streaking tips. He'd spray a big silver streak around his afro like that. Total rock and roll black guy, you never see this except maybe Sylvester or, which goes back into the 70s. Or Parliament Funkadelics like that. He was way ahead of all of that.
Right.
And then and a guitar player, Mike, I think it was Mike. And it was a 3-piece band. Like I said, black and yellow way before Striper.
Yeah.
And it was all studded stuff and yellow platform boots, like that. And
Were they a hard rock band?
Heavy. They sounded just like Kiss.
Wow.
And except they were 3-piece instead of 4. So they made it work that way. And they all sang harmonies like that. And I worked with them, and I wound up, I wouldn't say touring with them, but we'd go upstate. They'd play a club, and I was like their roadie. I was the only roadie. I set up the drums. I worked the lights. I did the pyrotechnics. We pack it down and come back like that, So that's kind of where I was getting my schooling from as far as, that goes back to high school. We used to have high school dances, and they would book local Brooklyn rock bands and play the dances. And I would be there as part of the dance committee. I'd be there in the afternoon. The band would show up with their gear, bring it downstairs, set up in the cafeteria, set up the stage, watch them play. And at the end of the night, 10, 11 o'clock, whatever it was, break down, pack it back out, and that's where I got my initial roadieism of learning how to be, an assistant support position with rock bands. So I when it came to working with Spike, I was already there. I knew how to do this stuff like that. But and this was some of the, I was always at Aucoin's office. Once he had his office on 55th Street, Rocksteady, I was a street messenger. By the time I graduated high school, and by 1975, I was a street messenger in Manhattan, a foot messenger, and our office was on 51st or 52nd and Park, right off of Park. So I knew where that tunnel was, where they did their photos. It's a circular tunnel with a waterfall. Was right across the street from where my office was. And I was just a hop and skip right up to 55th Street. I was there all the time on business, picking up and delivering as a messenger. And I'd stop into Aucoin's office all the time. And Sean would ask me, hey, I'm starting working with this new band. They're called Fallen Angel, but we're thinking of changing the name. And he'd lay out all of these costume designs and color artworks of costumes and concepts and logos. And he'd say, so you're a big fan of KISS. What do you think of this? And he's like getting my input on what I thought of what would be turn into stars.
Right.
Wow.
The band,
They became stars.
Yeah.
Well, it's called Fallen Angel.
Yep.
And this is right about the time that Michael E. Smith had just joined.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of, I would always see what was going on in their office at one point or another, and I had put together my own fan stuff. If you remember the release of the album of the Originals,
Yep.
remember that? Okay, there was a booklet that came with it, and on the front cover of the booklet was an old Brooklyn fire alarm.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, you'd run up and you'd pull the handle, and it had a KISS poster on it. And if you go in, you look in the pages, it says fan submitted KISS button, and it was a reverse of Gene's makeup. It was a black button, and I had painted buttons by hand, and I did their makeup in reverse, and I gave them to them, and that was included as one of the pictures. It just said fan submitted it, because I would show them my scrapbook that I put together.
Yeah.
With I would hand draw from memory their various gestures and positions they would do on stage. Gene would stand like he's like in a horse stance with his legs open, like do something with his bass, or he would Ace would straddle Gene's leg like this, something like this is early stuff. And I would draw it, what I remember like that in drawings before I was using a camera. And I had all this stuff and it had a black leather bound three like a binder's book, and I put KISS on it and glitter, did the KISS logo, and it had a belt, a leather belt around it. You could tie it shut, and I brought it up there and I showed Bill, and he's looking through all of this stuff, and he goes, maybe there's something in here. Maybe we can use you someday. I don't know. We'll figure it out like that. And I go to leave the office, and all of a sudden I feel a hand on my ass, and I'm, whoa, Bill gave me a little grope, on the buttocks there.
Yeah, he liked the boys.
That's exactly what Chris's mom said. When I got back to Brooklyn, I went up to Chris Gola's house, and I told her what he did. She goes, "Oh, watch out for Guy. He likes the boys."
Yeah.
And I was clueless at that point about gayness in the rock industry.
Yeah, Bill's got a
I had no idea that there were businessmen who were gay in the music industry. So that kind of took me by surprise. But let's see, what else was there?
Well, I remember you telling me a story about something that you had come up with as a fan that got Gene's attention, and Gene nudged Bill and was like, "Guy, you need to look at this." Maybe it was a jacket with a painting on it.
That's right. That's just where I was going. Perfect segue. Yeah. There was a picture in Circus Magazine of all of them grouped around a bus stop, and Paul's up on the pole. He's hanging on the sign, and the other three are down at the base of it like that. And I took that photo out of Circus Magazine, and I recreated it on the back of a denim, like a Levi jacket or a Wrangler jacket, because we were wearing them back then with no sleeves. And I painted that in the border area on the back of the jacket, and I painted it in color.
Yeah,
like that. And And on mine, I think on mine, I painted the cover of Hotter Than Hell or something like that. So my buddy had one, and I had a different one.
Mhm.
And when we were at the Sunshine Inn, at the end of the night when the show was over, I saw, the room was clearing out. Gene came out. He was walking around, and he grabs me, by the shoulder, and he's like, here. And he turns me around, and he says, Gee, come here. Come over here. Look at this. Look, you see this? And he's thinking marketing. This is before people were wearing battle vests and rock and roll.
Yeah,
the buttons.
he knew early on.
Wait, this is decades before painting the back of Metallica on the back of your vest like this. And he saw that. He saw the potential marketing wise like that. And they were impressed, I guess, because I painted this and I painted that like that. And I really wish I could remember more of what the discussion was. But they were nice enough to let us keep one of the hotel rooms, the ballroom that they had overnight, because it was like the middle of the night. We had no way to get back from South Jersey back up to Brooklyn like that. I think we took buses or something. So they let us kind of just have the room until the morning. And we were sleeping on pool tables, because there's no beds. It was just like a big meeting room like that. We slept on tables. But that was another thing I was impressed by, was the painting on the back of the jackets. So like that. And you heard about the issue that happened to me with the Phil Maurice, where I got in trouble with them, right?
Well, yeah, I was gonna bring that up because I remember you were just trying to help them out, but you pissed Gene off in particular.
Ever the promotion guy. I'm like the idea. I'm like Michael Keaton's character in Night Shift. I'm an idea man, Chuck. I'm an idea man, Chuck. I got all these ideas to promote them. That's one of my shots from the Fillmore. Having watched them so meticulously, when they were in the songs, when they were going to do a certain thing at a certain point, I knew that, and I would watch Gene through the lens of my camera. Bingo! I watched Gene through the lens of my camera, and I knew exactly when he was going to spit the flame. I could see him purse his lips. He'd hold up the torch, and what he's doing when he's holding the torch, he's going back and forth from side to side. He's looking where the draft is blowing. He's looking for it to blow away from him. Yeah. Okay, this is an old stage, a magician's trick that goes back to Renaissance, and back to ancient times. And he's searching for where the breeze is blowing, so it doesn't come back at him. Right. And I watched his lips, and I could see just when he's going to tighten his lips before he blows it. And I'd hit the shutter, and just at the same time, he'd spit it, and I caught it, and that's what you see in the picture.
Nice.
I was able to catch that, and there was no other photographers that knew the cues. They didn't know exactly when he was going to do that yet. It took him a few shows, like Bob Gruen and big photographers like that, to know when he was going to do that. And I think this is just before the spitting of the blood was when he was doing that.
Well, let me ask you, like the Phil Maurice thing really fascinates me, because like they essentially rented that venue just for press, from what I gather. They didn't do a proper show there. It was a way to show off the stage show, but like they had this spiderweb background behind them. Like was that an Alice Cooper set piece, or what was that? That's
what I was told. It was a leftover from Alice Cooper. He'd been one of the last bands that rehearsed or played there, and they left that up, and they put the KISS sign in front of it.
Yeah, because I mean, like the venue was shut down right at that time. Like they
pretty much, yeah.
But it wasn't. They weren't doing active shows at that point.
They rented it out. It was going to be a big press show, for Casablanca and for Neil Bogart, and like that. And they rented it out. They rehearsed there for like a week, dress rehearsals and whatnot, and then they did the show like that, And I was much better with the camera by this point. And of course, being in high school, I was a member of the photography club, so I had access to all the film and developing materials I could ever need at my disposal. So I would shoot at whatever I wanted to shoot. I'd go, and I shot other stuff at the Coventry too. There was a couple other bands I shot, and then I go back, bring the film back to school. At the end of the day, go right up in the lab, develop the negatives, start printing pictures. And that's what I did with the KISS pictures. So what happened was, again, me trying to convince my peers, my friends, high school friends, whatever, in school, what KISS was about. I figured, well, Here's a free show. Here's a way for me to get them to come and see for themselves what this is all about.
Yeah.
And there was no official tickets or that I any kind of advertising that I could hand out. So I drew up my own little version of what looked like a little promotional ticket, like a miniature flyer. You know, it was about 4 or 5 by 3, like that. And I drew the KISS logo on it. Said special promotional show. And I had overheard Peter say some of the guests that they had invited. And it was some of the radio celebrities from WNEW-FM, Allison Steele, the Nightbird, and some other rock stars that were going to be there, you know, that were invited, were on the invitation list. And I handed these out to everybody. I don't remember how many. It was a lot of them. I handed them out. And people were showing up at the stage door on the side with this little ticket thing going, well, this is so I can get in, so I can see this band like that. And after a while, there's several up there going, where are these coming from? Where are they? I mean, and of course, right?
It came from
Here's
this guy.
sitting in the center audience area of the Fillmore's, all empty seats. This was like a rehearsal day or something.
All right.
No, it was the day of the show, but nobody was there yet. And Gene and Paul sat me down. They stood over me in a very intimidating manner. Paul put his platform boot foot up on the seat next to me, leaned in with his hand on his hip, and him and Gene gave me the riot act. You know how much trouble we could get in for putting these people's names on here. What the hell were you thinking? Blah, 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 blah. And they just berated me in stereo.
Wow.
Me, a high school kid, trying to help promote them. But because I didn't ask anybody's permission, I just did what I thought was the right thing to try and get more people to come and see them.
Right.
Especially, my fellow schoolmates, some of who showed up and were pretty much well, after finally seeing them.
Right.
So by the time we graduated, they were like, you know what? You were right. We should have listened to you.
Yeah.
I took heat. Everybody was laughing at me. Everybody's making fun of me. And then they saw them and they went, oh my God, you were right. Wow. You know, and so I did whatever I could to help promote these guys. I never thought I was doing something wrong. You know,
no, you're just a overzealous fan trying to help out a band that you're supporting, you know.
Now people get paid for that.
Yeah,
right,
exactly. That you were the original street team.
Yeah.
Right. And then in 70, after the Martian Rock Band broke up, and I got approached by a guitar player and his girlfriend. I was working on one of the stores in New York City in the Village area, on 8th Street. And he comes in and he's a guitar player. We got to talk, and of course I look like a rock and roll guy. And we swapped numbers, and what do you do? I'm a bass player. He goes, oh, we're looking for a bass player. Well, turns out this was a Jersey Shore band called Virgin with Ian Chris, well, singer, like that. And it was a 5-piece glam band. Platforms, Alice Cooper show with the Boa Snake, David Bowie show, the Martha Hoople, KISS songs, all this. And through Virgin, I met this guy who was a huge KISS fan, who made the actual very first KISS fan magazine called Kisser.
Oh, wow.
And his name was Randy Paul, later on known as Randy Rocks, ROXX. And he was kind of like he was a wannabe promoter in Jersey. And God bless him, you know, he had a stuttering problem. He would get nervous and stutter, and people made fun of him and they mocked him, you know, and that wasn't cool. You know, and I would defend him. I'd stand up and, you know, like, don't make fun of him. And I'd yell at people for making fun of him. But he put together this fan magazine, and he asked me for permission to use my Fillmore photos in the gatefold, in the centerfold. You open up, and there's all these pictures, you know, back in early Xerox days, you know, before they were using screens to get a better quality. It was black and white. And he had, once he knew me and he met me, man, this guy was coming from Jersey over my house all the time in Brooklyn and talking KISS talk, just like we're doing now. And so it to some people, you know, being near the band would make them like gaga, you know, like, oh my God, it's Superman. and Batman.
Right.
You know, the
Yeah.
whole Justice League, the Marvel Universe is in front of him. But knowing somebody who knew them that close was almost just as good as knowing the band members themselves,
Exactly.
because you heard all these inside stories, and you could then feed it down, channel it to the street level.
Yeah.
So, having been a fan myself, and been a rocker, you know, a performer myself, I know what that feels like. That transitional threshold between being a fan and being a performer. So when people do it to me, I can't. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it. People call me rock star, and you're a god, you're a legend, you're this, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not those. I haven't earned that. You know, if you want to call me that, that's fine. But you call me an icon. I'm not a legend. I've never earned legend, but I'm able to interface with real legends.
Right.
You know, and it's kind of a really cool feeling. You know, as a sidebar. We used to have the Academy of Music where Kiss played. It was where Gene burned his hair.
Yeah, that was the New Year's
That
Eve
show.
show. Yeah,
And the Academy eventually became the Palladium.
that's right.
We had some of the best killer rock shows on the planet come through there. You know, Stars, Cheap Trick, Rush, Van Halen, Heart.
Yeah.
I was in the front row for a lot of these. I was friends with a girl whose uncle was one of the Spotlight guys. So
Nice.
I got in all the time. I was in the front row for Heart. I was in the front row I saw Pat Travers. And this was the Boom Boom
Whiskey.
Out Goes the Lights lineup with Tommy Aldridge
Yeah, they were great.
Nice.
and Mars Cowling on bass and Pat Thrall on guitar.
Right.
Right on.
Before
Well, here's
Mr.
me in the
All, yeah.
front row watching these guys with my jaw on the floor. And then afterwards, I had access to go backstage, you know, and kind of hang out. And I got my picture taken with Pat Travers and their, at the time, manager, like that. That's like, you know, mid late 70s. Jump ahead, 1983, I'm in Steeler. We're opening for who? Hughes Thrall.
Which was
Nice.
amazing. Loved Hughes
Right.
Thrall.
And
Yeah.
I kicked myself in the ass for not having looked for the opportunity to meet Glenn Hughes. He wasn't as much on my radar at the time, even though I was a Deep Purple fan. But I'm on stage right. Yngwie's across from me over on stage left. Ron, of course, in the middle. And I'm playing, and I happen to look over at the stage door, and there's Pat Thrall in the doorway watching Yngwie.
Yeah.
As did every guitar player at that
Yeah,
point.
everyone watched
He was
Yngwie.
like, you know, after the show, I managed to get to talk to Pat Thrall, and I said, you know, I don't know if you'll remember me. I was in the front row when you played with Pat Travers at the Palladium. And he goes, and I said, I was backstage kind of talking to you guys. He goes, that's where you look familiar from. I said, just a few years ago, I'm a kid in the audience watching you, and here we are sharing the same stage. I said, you have no idea of how exciting that is for me.
Yeah.
You know, and he dug that. And I said, and you know what, by the way, this is the perfect tag. I said, I have both of your Automatic Man albums. And he goes, that album didn't sell very much.
No,
It was
but
a real left field progressive band.
Yeah, but it's great playing.
Very progressive. And I said, and Mike Shreve, the drummer from Santana, was in Automatic Man. And I saw the alien heads on it, and that's what kind of drew me to it. So I bought it and listened to it, and the pyramids and all of the imagery that they had, the alien extraterrestrial imagery. I said, I have both of the Automatic Man albums. And Pat Thrall goes, oh man, he goes, thank you so much. You know, and that made his day.
Nice.
You know, so it's a warm feeling. It's you feel like you did something right by making some rock star's day.
Sure.
You know, that they never saw coming.
Yeah.
So I know how that feels, and like that. So
let me get into this. So we're kind of discussing your KISStory. So Kiss winds up taking off. You know, you're from the homeland where they started out.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts of how things turned out, how they blew up? You know, were you happy with how they changed their sound with Destroyer and everything? And B, did you have other run-ins with the guys from the band as time went on?
as time went on, they got bigger and bigger and further removed.
Right.
So I had less access to them unless I happened to accidentally bump into them up at a Coin Management.
Right.
And of course, and they always wore their platforms. You know, even when they weren't in their their war gear, they still wore their platforms.
Wow.
So even they weren't running around. I don't remember them covering their faces as much.
Right.
You knew they were rockers, but you didn't know who they were. They could have been anybody. So this was before they were covering their faces. Yeah, I mean, I saw them several more times at like the Madison Square Garden shows. I managed to get right down front. I think it was Dynasty when New England opened for them.
Yeah, that was Dynasty.
Yeah, when Paul was producing the New England album.
Yep.
So I was like this, like my chin was on the stage. They were like that right there.
Wow.
Like that, and that was about the only time I would see them. When Peter would come out and do Beth, he'd come out and he'd sit on I think they used a bongo or a conga as a seat, and he would sit on that, and he'd do the song, and only if you were like that close to his family, you knew like the inside names that they all called each other, and his nickname was Georgie.
Yeah, his middle name.
His brother Joey always called him that. Say Georgie. So when the song's over and I yell out Georgie, and he looked right over and he saw me, and he tossed me one of the roses, like that, like any way. So that was about as close as I could get with them until I want to say 1980, when Eric Carr was doing rehearsing with them at the Palladium,
right,
of all places.
Yeah, that was his first show with them.
Yeah, and I had heard that they were rehearsing. We were walking down the street behind the Palladium. We hadn't gotten to the backstage area yet, and there's this guy with this long black, cool-looking hair, and he's kind of, we all sat on the edge of a car. We sit on the fender or something. He's talking to some people, and my friend Randy, who I told you earlier, Randy Paul, was talking to him, and I come walking up, and he goes, "Oh," stuttering. By the way, I want to introduce you to my friend, my very good friend, a bass player. This is RIK FOX. And he goes, "Rick, this is Eric Carr." And I go to shake Eric's hand, and he goes, "RIK FOX, huh? Fox. That's a pretty cool name." At that point, he was still a Hawk.
That was before he became the Fox.
Later that week, at the end of the week, when they had done their show, Bill gave me some passes to get into the show. Bill O'Coin. His character was a fox.
Oh, wow.
So just all I can speculate is him thinking when I was introduced and he went, "RIK FOX, huh? That's a pretty cool name." I didn't know that what had happened until
it was an 11th hour decision to change him from a Hawk
to
a Fox.
Yeah.
I do know that much.
You'd have to ask him, and he's not here anymore.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
a trip.
So we can speculate. It looks like that, and Randy passed away too, so we can't even ask him because he was right there when it happened.
Oh man.
So that was my interactions with them as they started to kind of go up the ladder, and then I started really jumping into my own career.
Yeah.
And I really didn't have that much time to go see them when they played. Now,
Right.
Angel came along,
Right.
and I was at every New York show for Angel,
Yes.
and Philadelphia, and New Jersey. They were much bigger of an influence on me at that point than Kiss was.
Yeah.
I mean, there already was a Kiss. I'm not going to try and recreate Beyond Martian Rock Band, what they're doing. That's their niche. Angel, I could pull off, because I look close enough like cross between Mickey and Punky.
Oh, you looked a lot like Punky in the pictures I've seen from your younger days. Yeah.
And I caught a lot of heat for that once I got to Los Angeles. In New York, we would have these rock and roll conventions at various hotels. And photographers who came and shot all the concerts would sell their pictures, memorabilia, paraphernalia, things like that. Richie Rano from Stars had his own table, and he would sell stuff and reprinted old backstage passes, things like that, because his dad had a printing business. And I would go to these conventions, and I had a pair of really tight white denim bell bottoms, and the black leather jacket, and I had the shoulder bag, and I had people going, "Are you Punky Meadows? Are you Punky Meadows?" Everywhere I went. I actually had a button made. I said, "No, I'm not Punky Meadows," which sat next to all of these other buttons on my bag that were Angel buttons. But so that was, it was easier for me to more plausible for me to look like somebody in a rock band like Angel than it was for me to do something like Kiss. So
Yeah.
and that was pretty much it. That was a lot of my Kiss days.
Well, and also the getting mistaken for Vinnie Vincent from photos that you took.
That kind of never ended for a while. Well, that was still in the late '80s.
Yeah,
I
gotta bring up the Vinny angle because we have to go over it.
Well, as you know, you were kind enough and generous enough to do an interview with me on your podcast about the story about what Vinny did to me.
Yeah.
How he ripped
that
me
was
off.
very early in the show, so feel free to go ahead and re-talk about it because that was like very early in the show's history. So a lot of people will not know what you're talking about.
Well, that was my second lineup of Sin, my LA lineup of Sin. I had 3 of the guys from a band called Alien out of New York from Mongol Horde Records. And I reformed Sin. And we were like one of the next biggest unsigned bands in Los Angeles. We were like an LA version of Twisted Sister, but 4/5 of the band were ex-New Yorkers. So we had a New York attitude that people try to copy, but they couldn't. They didn't know, they didn't have the same core essence like we did as New Yorkers. And Frank Starr, God love him. I mean, everybody loved Frank Starr. He was our singer. And we got approached by a guy named Todd Cooper. We played the Stardust Ballroom, and there was a big backlash against the Olympics going on. So we called it it was called the Metal No Olympics. And Witch and Tariff, and I got a poster here. Savage Grace were all on the bill with us, and we headlined. And Lucy Forbes, who was a promoter, she promoted a lot of the shows, the big shows at Country Club. She brought Todd Cooper to come see us, and he approached us. Said, you guys got a buzz going on, so we'd like to see what you're all about. And we kind of did some informal hanging out, and they came to some shows, and he liked what he saw. We were getting good reviews in the local trades, and he said, I'd like to work with you guys. Now, Todd had an office at Management 3 in Beverly Hills. Management 3 was Jerry Weintraub's company. I mean, Jerry Weintraub was a huge movie producer. Karate Kid and all these huge films, but they also handled John Denver, the Eagles, Neil Diamond. I mean, mega bands, like the top of A-list bands. Jerry Weintraub's company handled all these people. So we were like the only unsigned. They wouldn't touch an unsigned band. We were the only unsigned band that Management 3 took on. They're kind of like a spec thing. So I don't remember exactly how Todd knew Dana Strum. I had met Dana a couple of years before that. He was a bass player in a new wave pop band. I think they were called Modern Design. And I met him through a guy named Bob Ace, who used to manage Face Dancer on Capitol Records out of Baltimore. And Bob brought me to see Dana. Dana was like a mover and shaker in the industry.
Oh yeah, sure.
This guy had it even back in like the early 80s. There's our Sin picture this. Dana had his fingers on all these different pulses and these different pies and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was a real hustler. He knew how to talk his way into anything.
Well, I think he introduced Ozzy to Randy Rhoads, I think, is the story.
Yeah. And also Jakey Lee after Randy.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
sure.
that was, again, much later. But Dana was one of these guys that could come in there and just sell water to the ocean. He could sell ice cream to the Eskimos. Dana Strum could do anything. And somehow Todd was hooked up with Dana Strum, brought him in to see us. We rehearsed at our drummer's garage out in Monterey Park. And he brought, at the time, Dana was playing with Danny Spanos. He had one hit. He had an album out, he had one hit. And he brought Danny Spanos with him. And they watched us rehearse. And he said, we had a kind of a meeting on the side afterwards. And he said, if you want us to work with you and we'll get you signed, you're going to have to get rid of your drummer and your singer. Those guys are not, the drummer's all over the place, which I couldn't tell. I thought I played well with this drummer. We gelled well.
Yeah,
but
you would know. You're the bass player.
Right. And this drummer was like, he loved Cozy Powell, and so did I. So, and we would work as a bass and a rhythm section, bass and drums, we would work out stuff. So we would work off of each other.
Yeah.
And so we were pretty tight. And then they didn't like Frank Starr. They thought Frank was straining too hard, or the stuff we were playing was pushing his range too far. And it fell upon me, that I regret it to this day, that I had to be the guy to say, hey guys, if they want to work with us, but I got to let you guys go.
Dang.
And that sucked. It sucked.
Yeah,
I still feel bad about it. You know, and to this day, the drummer Mark Anthony Benkachea, who's now playing with Graham Bonnet. I think he still has a little bit of it under his skin too. It still kind of bugged him. I apologize profusely over the years. I gave him right of first refusal if I try to reform sin. He said, no, I'll pass. But, you know, like that. So anyway, they took us in the studio. Dana's producing us. Todd's brother is engineering. And we were at a place in the Burbank, Kendon Recording Studios, where Paul McCartney recorded, Stevie Wonder recorded, and we had spec time in the middle of the night. And Dana was producing. And it was a really unorthodox manner in which I'd never, you know, usually you do the rhythm section and you do your layers of your guitars and then you do your vocals like that. Dana would come in and he'd do the guitars first. And he would rewrite the songs. My guitar players were such big fans of Iron Maiden, and they smoked a lot of pot, and they would just go off on a left field on writing these Thin Lizzy-esque Iron Maiden type harmonies. And I said, guys, there already is an Iron Maiden. Let's write something different. Right. Let's you know, like that. Dana was the guy who came in there. Hey, guy, that's a picture from Thunderball. Dana got them to work together in such a way that our demo sounded more like Judas Priest, which was okay with me, you know. But Dana would have us do the guitars first, to I guess maybe a click track or something, and then I would kind of put my bass in. Then they bring a drummer in, and Dana brought some kid I never heard of out of Vegas. The kid drove in from Vegas, set up his drums, tuned them, recorded 4 songs, broke down his drums, and drove back to Vegas all in one night.
Wow.
Amazing. And Mark Slaughter, despite the rumors you heard about how he got into Vinnie Vincent Invasion, Dana knew Mark from Vegas. Mark came in and sang all the tracking vocals on our songs. That's right. So he knew those songs. He knew On the Run. Okay. And that was Sin right there. Yeah. And there's Mark Benkachea next to my fist. He's the drummer who's now with Graham Bonnet. And Frank Starr, of course, being over my left shoulder. And Richie on the one side and JJ on the other. So we found a singer out of San Diego, a guy named Rick Reed, who was with a band called Child, and he was with a band called The Right. And we threw his name around the Hollywood scene. And all of the guys who came up from San Diego, vis-a-vis Rat and Warrior and Sarge, you know, all these guys who were around the Rat universe. When we mentioned Rick Reed, they all went, oh, you got that guy in your band? He's getting signed. The guy's phenomenal. He goes, they would say, he's the one that scared all of us out of San Diego to come up to Hollywood. Wow. That's how good this guy's vocals were. Nice. And his claim to fame, I remember being told, was that he was the replication of what was supposed to be Ronnie Dio's voice on a Budweiser commercial. You know, and it was to this Bud's for You, to the tune of Rainbow in the Dark. Now, years later, I'm reading that actually was Ronnie singing it. So I don't know what I was being fed. This guy came in with attitude, and he even looked like a rock star. He cut all his hair off. He was driving a truck with sparklets. Okay. And he wanted to come in and make this his band. We were like his backup guys, and it was going to be like his project. And we sat around the conference table in the studio, and everybody looked at me. And I went, not on my watch. I said, I didn't bring this band from sand at the ground level up to where it is to hand it over to some guy just because he's a singer. No, it's not going to be his band. Okay, I put this together. I'm not going to let that happen. You know, and we went back and forth with it about that, with meetings and whatnot. Now, while this was happening, one night I show up at the studio, and there's Vinnie Vincent sitting at the console. You know, and Dana's playing him mixes of our songs. He's playing him On the Run.
Right.
And Vinnie goes, I really like this song a lot. maybe we can re-record it at some point and have you be involved. Now, having you be involved was never defined beyond that moment. We never went further beyond what my role would be in re-recording the song. Little did I know what he was planning to pull off. But when I walked in, Vinny goes, "You look familiar." And I said, when Kiss was, one other story, when Kiss was rehearsing at SIR to do the Heavens on Fire video, I'm hearing Ace Frehley licks coming from the room that we used to rehearse in, that Motley Crue would give us, their leftover time when we rehearsed at SIR. And I'm hearing these Ace Frehley licks through the door. And I open the door, and then I open the second door, and I look in. There's this guy standing there in Ace Frehley's black lightning boots, the platform boots, with the silver lightning going down the sides, and a Marshall stack, and an empty room. And he's just standing there, kind of like slouched a little bit, bending his knees like Ace used to. And he's playing these Frehley licks. And he looks up, and he goes, "Oh, hi." I went, "Hi, sorry." Walked into the wrong room, and I shut the doors. That was my first initial vision of seeing Vinnie Vincent.
Wow.
So now cut to us be walking into the recording studio. He's sitting at the console hearing my song, and he goes, "That's where I know you from." So again, there's another one of those "that's where I know you from" moments.
Yeah.
And like that, he says, we really like this song a lot. And I was kind of like, I think when I walked in, they had this look on their face like, "Oh, we didn't know he was going to be here." You know, it's like I walked in and caught him with the other woman kind of thing.
Yeah.
Something was up. Oh God, that face, that donkey face. He looks like a donkey. You know,
said
and then,
not me.
yeah, I mean, and then when their first album came out, we got invited to the record release listening party at SIR, and I got pictures of me and my Thunderball guitar player Joey in pictures with Vinny and Dana together. You know, and I'm pointing at Vinny. You know, it's like the "I'm with Stupid" picture. You know, like there, like that. You know. It's backwards on my when you're doing this recording mode, like live feed, everything's backwards.
I have to get used to it too.
Yeah. So I got pictures of us together, and you could see Vinny and I together in the same picture, and we look nothing alike. We look like two completely different people. But yet, when his stage pictures started to come out, I went, "The fuck? This guy looks like me. Where did all that hair come from?" You know, because in Kid, you look at the Lick It Up video, he's got like no hair.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
there's a picture of you and Mark St. John that goes around everywhere, and I'm looking it up right now. That everybody thinks it's Vinny and Mark, but it's not. It's you and him.
When Mark is crouched down on the stage playing a guitar.
No, it's him like making you make a face.
Yeah.
I'm saving it now. I'll put it up here in a second.
We were at the country club.
We
were at the country club watching some other bands, and Mark and I were talking, and we were kind of mocking Vinny, and we were talking about how funny Vinny's lips are so fat that Mark reached over, there it is, and he bent my lip down, and we were kind of, you know, mocking, making fun of Vinnie Vincent.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
that's the story behind that one.
So people shared it everywhere, going, "Hey, it's Mark St. John and Vinnie Vincent," not realizing it's RIK FOX.
Well, if you actually if you zoom into the little laminate down above my belt, it's a little pink laminate. If you enlarge that and turn it sideways, it says Surgical Steel. So I was with Surgical Steel at that point. I was recording and performing with Surgical Steel out in Phoenix at that point. That was like 1987, 88.
That's funny as hell.
And Mark and I had already played together on stage at Joshua's or Jezebel's in Orange County when Sweet Savage from Texas were playing there. And since we were both in the room, we said, "Hey, why don't we just get up and do a jam? Let's play together." And we did Zeppelin's Rock and Roll because it was the easiest thing anybody could play. And Mark and I are playing on stage with two of the guys from Sweet Savage. So that's kind of how we got to be friends. And there we are at the country club. So, you know, I guess me wearing a pink scarf and a pink feathered earring was kind of like the sinker right there.
Yeah. I can't figure out why Mark is wearing a trench coat. That's a weird look for him.
He always wore something like that. He dressed down a little bit, you know, and just wore plain clothes. So so Marcus,
what do you need?
Marcus going, with that, and he's peeling my lip down because he said, I said to Mark, if there are people, if you could caricature them as an animal, this is kind of what they would look like. And Shrek wasn't invented yet. But if you look at Vinny kind of has this the structure where he kind of looks like a pouting donkey.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
All right, so like that. And so that's what we were doing at that
All right, well, our friend Bushy says you do look like Vinnie Vincent in that picture. So
now if I could find the picture of me and Vinny, if I could find the picture of me and Vinny at the record listening party, standing next to each other, they look at it and go, no, they don't look alike.
All right, let me do my Google thing and see if I can figure it out.
Yeah, and then of course, when I joined Surgical Steel, I didn't know who they were, and I had just heard from people. I was trying to get some networking information. Who's Surgical Steel? And they said, if you like Judas Priest, you'll like Surgical Steel. They'll just like Judas Priest, and they wear all black leather. And all right, fine. So I got invited to go to Phoenix and learn the material because they were going to record an album in a week. Well, little did we know that their financial backing was going to fall out. But I thought I was getting ready to have a black costume made, and the band leader Jim Keeler goes, "Hey, Chief, no, we're going to go all white." He fired like the whole Surgical Steel lineup. Jeff Martin, who was the singer, was also the drummer in Badlands. Jeff Martin was the singer of Surgical Steel.
That's right.
Of course, if you look at that there's clips of it on YouTube, something alley where Surgical Steel is performing in there and like that, and they're all wearing black leather and stuff. So I'm told we're all going to wear white now.
Yeah.
Then I had to go out and I designed a white costume, and Cinderella was big at the time, so I kind of went, let me dip my toe in the Cinderella pool, and I had this white lace, stretch lace outfit, lingerie looking outfit with pink feathered earrings and multicolored snakeskin spandex, and had a white spandex coat with tails made with all this pink fringe on it that I designed. And then next thing you know, Vinnie Vincent's out, and he's got what? Pink feathered earrings and pink this, and all of a sudden he's got this big haircut that looks like mine. And I'm like, Jesus, this guy is just they're data mining everything.
In fairness, Rick, I don't know that I would want to take credit for Vinnie Vincent's look on that first record. I'm just saying.
I'm not taking credit for it, but he's taking credit for it without where it came from.
It wasn't a good look. That's all I'm saying.
Not for him. Rick looked pretty cool.
Rick could handle the look better than Vinny could, but not so much for him.
Well, it depends if you got the chutzpah to pull it off.
That's right.
It does take balls to do it for sure.
That's right.
Well, let's go ahead and have our moment where we piss off Blackie Lawless for a second. Here we go.
All right.
Here's a photo that Blackie Lawless does not want to exist, but it actually exists.
Yeah. That was the first official lineup of Wasp.
Yep.
And Tony's wearing my Fox magazine T-shirt.
Oh yeah, there was a fox on his chest there.
Yeah, it was a men's magazine. It was Fox, and that was the little fox head logo.
That's a trip.
And if you look at the picture, it's kind of like hammer, saw, nails, milk. What doesn't fit in this picture? and the three of them look like convicts.
Yeah. And
I got this innocent Punky Meadows trying to look cool, tough, and it's like, no, visually, I guess that really doesn't fit. That was just how I looked.
I think you fit in well with them on this picture personally, but yeah, I mean, I talked to you recently that I'd watched the Chris Holmes documentary, and it was interesting to hear his perspective on stuff, and like people are like, oh, Rick hates Blackie Lawless. It's like, but like, get in line. There's a whole host of people that have worked with Blackie Lawless, including Chris Holmes, that will back up those stories. He wanted it to be the Blackie Lawless solo band, and that's what he got,
I don't know how many people remember reading. I don't remember if it was Blabbermouth, one of those dirt rag type spreading the dirt websites. There was a story I read where someplace in Europe, Blackie got so furious at the monitor mix guy that he verbally out loud threatened to shoot and kill him. Dang. I remember that story distinctly. Nowadays, that would be considered like a terrorist threat. Okay, you got to go to jail for stuff like that. And Blackie's fans are so whitewashed, enamored. It's like a cult. This guy, I'm seeing the interactions with the fans with each other over him. You cannot even joke about this guy. You can't say anything funny. They swarm on you like wasps. Like, they attack you for saying something that they don't like. You can't even make a joke about the guy. Right. But when Chris Holmes comes out and essentially crucifies him in public, nobody goes after Chris. Nobody gets angry with him. Nobody makes threats at him. Nobody curses at him or anything like that. Chris is allowed, for some reason, he gets a hall pass to vilify, and rightly so, and crucify Blackie Lawless. But me, having been in the band before these guys, what they don't take what I say as any kind of gospel. They don't do. No, you weren't in the band. There's no gold records. There's no tours. There's no proof that you were in it. There's the pictures. That doesn't matter, and they brushed that aside. I said, but I recorded on the first demo with them, 6 songs. Look at the demo tape. It says my name. That doesn't matter.
You came up with the fucking name.
That doesn't matter. They well, when I did it, I did the interview with oh my God, for Wasp, Sting in the Tail, for Darren Upton. When Darren called me from the UK, and we were on the phone for like 2 or 3 hours, he said, you represent a very important, integral, missing puzzle piece in the history of Wasp that we want to know. Us Wasp fans want to know. And I gave him everything I knew, like I gave you what I know about Kiss in the early days, in the beginning. And he said, there are fans from the first album up until Crimson Idol. And then there's a line in the sand. And then from Crimson Idol on, those fans don't like you. They hate you. You represent something that they hate. But the fans from the first album up to that, they're kind of starting to come around and make up their own minds and say, you know what, I believe this guy. There's got to be a reason why Blackie won't acknowledge it. Now, Full and Bloom comes out with a Randy Piper interview.
Yeah, it was a good interview.
And they said, so was RIK FOX really in the band? And Randy's like, well, yeah, I was in the band. And did he really come up with the name? He goes, yeah, I bit him on the hand or something. I don't remember. He goes, yeah, but Rick came up with it. I'll back him on that. Rick came up with the name Wasp, and Blackie stole it. That's what Randy said. The fans and they push it aside. Nope, you weren't in the band. So
that's weird.
It doesn't matter who defends me that was in Wasp. There's a faction of the fans that just hate me and vilify me for whatever reason, and they would not, just because Blackie won't admit it, they won't believe it. And if Blackie, one day the sky opened and God comes down and Blackie goes, Rick was in the band, it's true. And I think these fans are so immersed in him, they wouldn't believe it either.
Right. Yeah. Well, and to me, I mean, and I love a lot of Wasp stuff, even up to like current day, but you have to acknowledge reality here. And I mean, I think, in the way you were dressing in those early days, I mean, I think they kind of took the look from you too, and it's like, and like Blackie switching over to guitar, it's like, but like the look you had kind of already established falls in line with what they wound up going with. I mean, am I wrong?
Well, what happened was when I was staying at his house, this little rental cottage in Hollywood there. I went out to around the corner. There was a public laundromat, and I was doing my laundry. And we had a newspaper called, I think it was the Weekly Reader or something. And it was like a penny saver kind of thing, classified ads and then stories of stuff, over in LA, whatever. And there was that first promo shot of Mel Gibson from Road Warrior, with the jacket, with the sleeve missing, the sort of shotgun in the holster.
Yeah, it was a cool look.
And the dingo dog. And I looked at that picture because at that point, Blackie said, we don't have an image. At that point, we don't even have a name. I'm looking for something that we've never done before. I can't have a name like anybody else's name. And we were kind of in that limbo. And when I saw that picture, I brought it back to the house and I went, we should look like this. Road Warrior. And he goes, no, we're going to scare off the record companies. We got to bring the record companies in first with the music, because we brought the demo tape over to A&M Records. My friend from New York, Hernando Courtright, he used to work at A&M Records. I gave him he told me, I consulted him before I went to Los Angeles. He knew everything about LA because his dad owned the Beverly Wilshire Hotel.
Oh, wow.
And he worked for A&M Records in the A&R department. So, and I knew him from the music scene in New York. We were really good friends. He'd invite me up there and he'd tell you, let's come up to my office. Let's listen to demo tapes together. You know, and he had a basket. He'd listen to a tape, and he'd throw it in the basket. Listen to a tape, throw it in the basket. Like that. And he say, open up the closet, go, here's records from all our artists. You can pick whatever you want, you know. So for Hernando and I were really good friends. And I asked him, he told me about Motley Crue. He had the first initial pressing of their demo on an album, the EP. He told me about Snow, which was Carlos Cavazzo's band before Courtright. You know, so he was kind of hipping me to what I should expect. So I told him I got invited to LA by this guy, Blackie Lawless. And he says, oh, I know Blackie. He goes, yeah, he's okay. He's okay. He played with Arthur Kane, you know, from the Dolls, and he's got he's a local guy. He's established there. I went, all right. So Hernando said, if you ever get anything going, let me hear it first. So we gave him right of first refusal. And I told Blackie, Hernando's coming out to the coast. You know, let's meet and play him the demo.
Oh, can I ask you a question real fast?
I'll answer it.
Well, I don't know if you'll know anything about this or not, but like there's been a photo that's been circulated from like 76 of Blackie Lawless, and like in the photo credit he's listed as like Blackie Guzman or something, saying that he's meeting up with Ace Frehley in 76. Does Blackie go back with Ace to the old New York days, or do you know anything about this?
Okay, when I was hanging around Kiss, his name never came up in anything where Ace was talking. While I was playing on the New York scene,
and here's somebody bringing up, was he in Ace's gang, the Ducky Boys? So I don't.
You know what?
I don't know.
The only place I ever heard of the Ducky Boys was that the movie, not Lords of Flatbush, but the other one. One of the. It's like a Lords of Flatbush. The one with Ken Wall, the Wanderers.
Okay.
When there's a huge gang fight,
right,
in the park. That's the first place I ever heard of it. I never heard of Ducky Boys before that.
I never heard of it till Ace brought it up in his book.
It could be. I don't know of Blackie ever hanging out with Ace like that. I never knew at the time to think to ask Ace that because nothing prompted me to bring it up. But while I was playing the New York scene in '75, Rock Scene magazine came out with some pictures of a block party of the rehearsal studio. A Bacchus rehearsal studio would put on a block party, and all these bands that would rehearse, they would play there. And there was a picture of a band called Black Rabbit, and they were silhouetted, so you really couldn't see their faces. It wasn't a very clear picture. There was just the fading twilight of the sky behind them, and the guitar player was supposedly, I guess, Blackie Lawless. He was in Black Rabbit,
right?
And I think they were from Staten Island. So I never saw Blackie anywhere on the New York scene when I was clubbing and hanging out and rubbing shoulders with everybody. I never saw him. I would remember him.
Yeah, because that was throwing me. I was like, so was Blackie part of the whole New York rock scene? Because I never heard anything about that before. You know.
No, I had never heard of him. But when I first came out to LA, and we set up a couple of nights so I could wear off the jet lag, and we talked about this and that and this and that, you know. And that's where he showed me his little library and books from, you know, Heimlich Himmler and Joseph Goebbels and about propaganda and telling people lies enough to where they'll believe it and that it's true if you say it so many times.
Oh, wow.
He knew ways of how to play people.
Mind control.
Exactly. Mind control. Thank you. And he would tell me this stuff, you know, and I had no one else to listen to. As far as guidance there, I was kind of under his wing. Right. And since he was from New York and already had the lay of the land, so he was kind of laying that out for me, what was going on.
I actually, I had a weird, like, you know, 6-step separation thing on a show that I appeared on recently. I went on this Twitch channel show and they were doing like rock trivia and they brought up Blackie Lawless. And I found out a weird tidbit of info about Blackie recently that I don't know if you even know this, Rick, but like apparently Blackie's uncle was a major league pitcher named Ryan Duran. Did you know this?
Yeah, I know he had
And-
some ties. Yeah, it's a major. Blackie wanted to be a Major League Baseball player.
Yeah, and Blackie was a baseball player. Like, I guess he
Right.
played in like the minors or something. But Ryan Duran was actually like his uncle was a very pretty popular baseball pitcher at the time in the 60s.
Mhm.
But the thing, and like me and my dad used to collect baseball cards, and we would collect 50s and 60s era cards. And he would tell me when I got Ryan Duran, like all these pictures of Ryan Duran on the baseball cards had these big Coke bottle lens glasses. And I'm like, this guy looks weird. And he would tell me stories about that Ryan Duran was a great pitcher, could strike anybody out, but it would take him 2 or 3 pitches to find the strike zone because he was legally blind.
Oh, I didn't know that. I did not know that. Yeah.
He'd throw a pitch like 20 feet outside the strike zone for like the first 2 or 3 pitches before he would find the strike zone.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is Ryan Duran, his uncle was from Texas, and Blackie Lawless wrote a song called "Blind in Texas." I'm just saying.
Well, "Blind in Texas" is an old saying. There's a scene in the Meatloaf film Roadie where he's driving a beer truck for Shiner Beer, and he pulls over. This RV is broken down,
Right.
and the manager is like this hyper guy, and he's like flipping out because they have to be in Austin by nighttime for a show, and he makes a comment. There's like a semi coming one way, and he flips him off, and there's a semi turns around, there's a semi coming the other way, and he's like, "Oh my God!" He covers his face, and it's the 2 semis. It's like the old comedy routine. The 2 semis pass each other. Where am I? Pass each other, and then he's laying in the center line with his eyes covered like this, and he's kicking his feet. He's going, "I'm blind in Texas. I'm blind in Texas. I'm blind in Texas." So that's an old saying that's actually it's an old Texas saying.
Yeah, but I was just going for a funny story. But thanks, Amy.
I know. Actually, I have a picture of Blackie when he was a kid in military school
Yeah.
with the little hat, the military uniform, and everything. And you can tell it looks just like him, just a kid version.
Wow.
The only tie-in I know of to Ace is that the guy who picked me up at the airport when I landed was Mike Solon.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Solon is the guy who plays the bartender in Blind in Texas. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Mike was when I arrived, Blackie's car was broke down, so he couldn't come and get me. So Mike was pretty much his driver. And Mike would pick him up and take him out to the clubs, hang out for a while, and then Mike had to get up for work in the morning and he'd have to come back. So Mike was the guy that picked us up. Mike Solon's brother, Eddie, was Ace Frehley's guitar tech and the sound man for early Kiss.
Oh,
There's
okay. Yeah, I know.
There's your degree of separation.
That's cool.
Okay. So and that's the only one. And Blackie told me one time when Kiss was on tour and they came through LA and they were staying at the Hyatt on Sunset, which they used to call the Riot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said Ace was so bored. This is funny. Ace was so bored. He went out to a toy store and bought a huge box load of the little green army men with the parachutes.
Yeah.
Hey, let me get that on the camera. The little green army men, they're kind of like this. They're molded in that shape.
Yeah.
And they have this little cellophane parachutes. He goes, Ace opened up each package. There must have been about 100 of these guys in a box. And he went over the balcony and he dumped it. And there's like hundreds of these little toy soldiers parachuting down Sunset Boulevard.
Wow.
People are like, what the hell? It was funny the way he told it. Because Ace was that's something Ace would do.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I knew Ace to be, he's a joker from the get-go. I walk into Max's Kansas City one night, and I go upstairs towards the dressing room, and Ace always hung out with Rick Rivets from the Brats.
From the Brats, yeah.
Yeah, him and Rick were like peas and carrots.
Yeah.
That was his hanging buddy. It was his cruising partner. Was Rick Rivets, and Rick was just as tall as Ace. Rick was like as tall as Blackie. And they were in the dressing room, and somebody popped a joke or something, and Ace was being drunk, laughed so hard in that high pitched, like he did on the Tom Snyder show. that laugh, he fell backwards, and you know, there's like a at the restaurants have them. It's a big gray garbage can. Okay, they put the bag liner in them.
Yeah.
Right.
Ace fell backwards with his ass first into the can and
wow.
was stuck, and he couldn't get out. And he's laughing hysterically at the top of his lungs. I use film anecdotes to match this parallel. The scene in Arthur where they pull up in front of the hotel, and the guy Bitterman opens the door and he falls out of the car.
Yeah.
He goes, Bitterman, I fell out of the car. Is that the funniest thing? That's comparable to Ace. Drunk.
Yeah.
Look, it's rock and roll.
Exactly.
There you
He
go.
Yeah.
fell ass first. Ace fell ass first into the garbage can, and it's just his legs and his torso sticking out. He couldn't get out. He was stuck like if you sat in a tire. He couldn't get out. And the harder he laughed, the more he wedged himself into the barrel. And everywhere, me and Rick, we're trying to turn the barrel over to get him out, and he was just wedged in. So we had to turn the barrel on its side. Now his Ace is on his side. And we're rolling the barrel to wedge him loose.
He's just
Yeah,
laughing the whole time, I'm
The
sure.
whole time. With a drink in his hand.
Never spilled it.
And he dropped a little laminated blue card that said, "My name is Ace Frehley. I'm with the band Kiss. If you find this, return it to Rocksteady Management and hand the address on it." It was like an ID card. Like if lost, return me to.
Wow.
That tells you he knew what kind of night he was going to have when he went out.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that was one of the funnier highlights of Ace.
Oh, that is a trip, man.
And he used to, afterwards, years later, if I bumped into him in a club, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I remember you. You're the kid from Brooklyn." So and he called him Curly, and that got his attention because he would get surrounded by people who would just drawing his attention 6 ways from Sunday, so you couldn't even have a conversation with the guy.
Yeah, everybody wants a piece of him. But that's how it goes. I mean, but for somebody who was there from ground zero, like this documentary comes out, they're finishing their final tour. Did you think that this many years later you would still be talking about these guys?
Only if somebody's interested enough to ask.
Yeah.
People say, "Why do you continually talk about Wasp? Why do you talk about this? Why do you talk about that?" Well, not everybody knows the same thing at the same time, all the time, always. There's always going to be somebody new who's going to go, "I didn't know about that. What can you tell me?" So as long as people are interested in asking, I'll tell them.
Yeah.
Like that. And when I finally got to do the audition for Wasp, after a couple of days of jet lag and going to the clubs and meeting David Lee Roth and hanging out with David Lee Roth and whatever, which is like, wow. So we go down to Randy's studio in Buena Park, and they said, "Okay, you sit down here. We're going to go through the set." And they went through like 5 songs, and then they went through it again. And it was like a moment of recall. I was back in Kiss's loft watching them rehearse. It was that kind of power.
Right.
Only I wasn't just watching. Now I was going to get up and step into it. Long before Mark Wahlberg and Owen Ripper and Rockstar.
Yeah.
That's kind of almost what I felt like.
Yeah.
These guys had such thundering power, and the arrangements of the songs and their simplicity, that I was just like, holy shit, and of course, I got up and I ran through the songs a couple of times. It took me two auditions, 2 nights of playing with them. After the second night, they I landed on February 4th, auditioned on the 6th, and by the 8th, they said, "All right, you're in the band. You got the gig." So, and then I had a co-wrote a Master of Disaster with them, and I put some stuff into BAD, and of course, I got no credit for any of that. So.
Well, you were. I've told you before. You're the Forrest Gump of rock and roll. You were like at the turning point of so many different things. New York and L.A. I mean, both 70s and 80s. Not many people can claim that they were there when both things took off.
Yeah, it's a very good parallel assessment. I wanted to be an angel so badly that when Circus Magazine came out and they actually announced that Mickey Jones was fired, but nobody knew why. Nobody was talking about it. I found out, of course, years later once I got to LA, and actually got to meet him and told him what an influence he was on me.
Did he tell you that he was banging Lydia Chris?
I forgot where I heard that, but yeah, that came up. I wouldn't use the term banging, just to be respectful.
I'm sure Lydia will even tell you that, but like Peter was already banging somebody else at the time.
Well, yeah, I don't get in the middle of that. I mean, you know what? The Kiss went out on their first tours, and Lydia would go out and visit them. She would come back, all of us at the KISSgola house, and we'd sit around, and she'd tell us tales of what was going on.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And one of the things.
I love Lydia. Let me make that clear. She's a sweetheart.
She is.
Yeah.
You know,
no disrespect.
And my gratitude for her acknowledging me in her book as well.
Yeah.
One of the things she said was they knew that Gene was terrified of gay people, even though Bill Aucoin was gay. Gene was, I mean, to use the term homophobic would describe Gene. He was afraid.
Okay.
Phobia meaning afraid. He was afraid of that for whatever reason. And Peter and Paul played a gag on him. And they said, Peter goes, let's get naked in the shower and wash each other.
Oh,
and then
Jesus.
called Gene in, and which they did. And they called Gene, and he curtain, and he sees the two of them naked, making like they were gay, you know,
right.
Washing each other. And Gene just like flipped. He got insanely like angry, like that. A joke like that was played on him.
Wow.
And the other thing, of course, that Gene doesn't get high.
Right.
And somebody baked hash cookies because Gene liked to have cookies and milk before he went to bed at night.
Yeah, sweet tooth.
He used to have, his mom used to make him cookies, you know, and somebody slipped him a hash cookie. he got stupid. And when he came out of it, he was pretty mad. He was sore when he got out of it.
Oh, I bet he was.
But yeah, and Lydia would bring us these stories about, you know, what was going on the road. So we were like waiting with bated breath to hear the news of what was going on, you know, like that.
That's true. Well, it's been awesome getting all these great stories from you tonight. Of course, I have to do a plug-in for my current event. You are a featured guest coming in to Rockin' Pod.
Yeah, thank you.
In August this year. So happy to have RIK FOX coming this year. It's going to be awesome. Go get your tickets at rockinpod.com. Click on the tickets button, and you will get your ticket to come see us.
And right. I'm only now, since I'm in Missouri. What is it? About 8 hours away from Nashville.
Yeah, you're a day's drive.
The day's drive. So it's I'm much closer now and accessible to the Rockin' Pod. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to be there. You know, with Ron.
We might hear you and Ron do a Steeler song at the pre-party, from what I've been told.
I got an email from one of the guys who coordinates the jam thing, and asked, you know, what songs would you like to play? Give us some songs and what like that. And I said, well, I played the Lucky Strike jam, doing a Kiss song. We did Cold Gin, which I posted on your page. I did the Ultimate Jam in Hollywood. I did all these other rock star jams. So yeah, I'm used to this, and I really don't need rehearsal. I'm well rehearsed at home. And I said, yeah, let's hear some Steeler songs, and here's another this song and this song. So I just gave him the list, but I haven't heard back from anyone yet. But that would be nice if I get to play.
I so hope that happens. I would love to hear you guys do Cold Day in Hell, because I love that Steeler record. And I'm going to get both of you to sign that Steeler vinyl for me this year.
Nice.
There we go.
We'll do it.
Should I bring my own bass, or are they going to supply gear, or what?
I would bring your own bass, because we're kind of a DIY operation.
Okay. All right. All right. My wife's coming with me. Is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we are at the 9 o'clock hour. RIK, so many amazing stories. Thank you again for sharing them with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. You know, it's the next best thing. It's the next best thing to being a featured guest at a KISS convention, to finally tell the story.
Well, we do the best we can with Decibel Geek. We're not a KISS show, but we do the best we can because we're KISS.
Thank you for the opportunity. Nobody else has offered that, just you guys.
Well, you have amazing stories, and it's great to hear these stories. So thanks again for doing it. We'll see RIK in August. Come to Rockin' Pod. Go to rockinpod.com, get your tickets, and join us in Nashville. And RIK, thanks again so much, man.
thank you guys for having me, and of course, give my regards to Ron, and tell him I hope he feels better.
Yes, we're hoping for.
And we'll see you in the funny papers.
Yeah, we're hoping for a Rock and Ron return next week, and we'll see you later. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Take care. See ya. See the sign off. Ooh, upside down.